you're like, oh yeah, I got a ton of eggplant and they're worth $5. I'm rich. And then somebody leaves that triple eggplant card or whatever and they hose you
That
and then you
sounds
yell at
so
them and
funny.
kick them out of your house because you don't like them anymore.
Rich in eggplant.
Um,
I like it.
yes, exactly. See, eggplants destroy lives.
This episode is sponsored by Druid City Games.
It's time for the Salt and Sass podcast when we share our love for the wonderful world of board games with you, whether you're a gaming veteran or just starting your tabletop journey. Welcome to episode 13, lucky number 13. I'm Suzanne.
And I'm Mandi.
And I mean, Mandy, I think I'm kind of a superstitious person. And I think like 13 is probably a number because you like all this good spooky stuff, right?
Oh, I know, but my parents are from the Caribbean, so superstition. And the Portuguese side too. For those who are Portuguese, they know.
Is that just like
Oh,
ingrained?
it's a thing. It is a thing. I
Got it.
swear, I need to have someone like, okay, so tell me your favorite superstition you had growing up, because I guarantee you the list will be long. But anyway.
Interesting. All right. Well, here we are, folks, with hopefully a lucky episode for us. We got lots of games to talk about. Mandy, I know that GameGenic just sent over a care package, which looked amazing. I saw you post a photo on social media and like, hype. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I have to say, so GameGenic was kind enough to send some products for me and for Suzanne to take a look at. They know that we're really big fans of Marvel Champions, and I've done a few events with GameGenics, and wonderful. And
I mean, I think that's the point, right? You've literally
yes,
hosted their kind of industry event for a couple of years. So, yeah.
exactly. And they're pleasant. Adrian, who is, responsible for the very large decisions that happen at GameGenics, is delightful and also Portuguese. Heyo, Portuguese connection. So we have some great chats, and I love doing work with them. And him and the team were kind enough to send us some products. So recently we received some of the new mats for the Guardians of the Galaxy, and I think there were a couple other ones in there. The main playmat, some sleeves for Guardians of the
I'm
Galaxy.
excited about that.
Oh,
That'll be really fun.
the mat's gonna be great, especially with these nails that I have. They are long for those who are just listening. It's easier to pick up those cards. I am the most excited for, I think they're like card rails, I think you call them. You put them in the kind of storage
The dungeon boxes, yeah, the long,
Yes.
like they look like really fancy shoe boxes. Like they're not
Yes.
shoe boxes, but they've got that long rectangular shape, and
Right.
that's what I store a lot of my champions in.
And it's so good. And you put that in there, and I find that I have even like more room to put things, and it's just really organized. Now,
Sure,
I'm also the
storage,
person that
man.
has like the dividers, and I've labeled them, and I've labeled the listen, it's wild. Okay.
That's cool. I'm excited. Thank you to them for sending some stuff over. Oh, Mandy, I'll have to track you down and figure out how
Yes.
to force you to ship some stuff to me because I want that playmat. That'll be really fun to play on for
Very good. And
sure.
then we can show all the things potentially on a stream. We've been saying it, which has been really busy adulting everybody. So we'll definitely try and get that
The
happening soon.
worst. The
I
worst.
know. But yes, and speaking of new things, yes, I'm going to talk about this again, the winter coat. And no, I'm not going to go on a thing about it. Somebody said, and he keeps talking about this winter coat, but has yet to show it to us. So I know not everybody watches the podcast, but for those who do, I will post a picture somewhere here of the winter coat that I got because it's great, super warm, and now I can just stop talking about it. And you can all see it if you come here to check it out. So there you go. I heard your pleas, and I have answered.
Okay. I excellent. I'll drop it in the show notes, Mandy. Give me that link.
All right, perfect. I'll just
All
put a
right,
picture
Mandy.
here.
Let's clothing Marvel champions aside. Let's get your video game minute out. Come on.
Okay. All right. It's. I know. I feel like it was kind of dry, everybody, and I'm sorry about that. So, I finished the game Pentiment that I had mentioned potentially last podcast, so episode 12, and it's the one I told you about. I think it's medieval-ish times. And in it, it's taking a look at a person who works in a scriptorium, and they're trying to solve this mystery that's happening in the village. And it kind of takes place over not 3 years, but like 3 cycles. I don't know the exact wording they use to get to the bottom of
Did you
these
talk about this
mysteries.
one last time?
I
Or are
did.
you just in this like period of time?
No,
All
I
these
did.
games
I
that you've been
did.
playing.
I did.
Okay.
I
Okay.
did. But I had just kind of started playing it. I finished it. And like I said, if I finish a game, it's good. Because usually I'm like, oh, I can't. After like 16 hours is like my cutoff for games. This one wasn't quite that long. I think it was only probably about 10-ish hours, maybe, give or take. But I was so into it. I just couldn't wait to get into it. I think I like the whole mystery aspect of it. So I know it's on Xbox. I know it's on Steam. I do not know if it's on PlayStation or Nintendo Switch. So, but I do know it's on the other two platforms. So if you have a chance to check it out, it actually like had, last time I checked, like 100% rating on Steam. So that may have changed since then, but you need to go. It's so good. So good.
All
So
right. All
Pentiment,
right, if you say so.
amazing. Next, I
Noted.
started playing Atomic Heart, which dropped at the recording of this. So I guess at the airing, when you all hear it, it would have dropped a few days prior to this podcast. Atomic Heart on Xbox Game Pass, and it's also on PC. I think it's also on PlayStation and whatnot. But I like free, so I played on Game Pass. I'm liking how it's going. I'll be honest with you. It takes place in Russia. Don't know how I feel about that part. I don't know.
It's a fraught period, sure.
This is it, right? So I don't know how
Well,
to feel about
today
that.
it's fraught to kind of connect with some of the stuff
Exactly. So
going
I don't
on,
know
right?
how I feel about it yet, but I haven't gotten to enough of the story yet to kind of see where it's going. But I like what I've seen of it so far, other than that kind of setting, and some of the mechanisms and the way the game plays. I'm enjoying. Okay. We'll get a little ranty here. I don't understand why games do this. Accessibility. Okay? There are so many games, and listen, I'm not even probably complaining about the most frustrating thing for people, but subtitles. I actually, doesn't matter what
yeah.
the game is, I will turn subtitles on, and I actually
Same.
will make them larger, just because I wear glasses, for those who maybe potentially haven't seen me, and I get them thinned. They're thick. And I don't play games right at my computer. Sometimes I'll play on a console and I'm, a further distance away. So I'm playing on a TV or something like that. So I make the subtitles larger and usually a very strong contrast. I need to see them. And I like to see it while people talk so I don't miss anything. Let me tell you how this game, oh my goodness, it's so small. You can get subtitles, but they are the smallest things I have ever seen. And it has them over people's heads talking, which is great, but they're small. And I've been online on Reddit's threads and stuff, and people are saying the exact same thing. They're like, I played on PC, so I'm like really close to the screen, and I'm struggling to see it. I play on a 50-inch TV. I can't see it. And even if I'm really close to the TV, I'm still struggling. So all that to say, I'm actually going to stop playing this game until they do an accessibility patch. And I know this is one of a few games that have the similar situation. Get it together. I'm sorry. I'm being straight out there. They probably don't even listen to this, so whatever. But smarten up. I'm not the only one who is struggling with this. Get your accessibility
you gotta
patches
smarten
in.
up from Mandi. That's not good. That's
Well,
not good, Atomic Hearts.
It's going to make me drop the game, and I was enjoying it to that point. So Atomic Heart, smarten up. Okay. Still playing Uncharted. I just wanted to update you. Is it normal for one to expire so many times in that game? Oh my.
Get good, Mandi. Get good.
I thought I was doing so well, but now I'm at the point where I'm anything that requires me to drive anything gives me stress because I'm real bad at it.
Got it.
So I'm driving a Sea-Doo thing, and there's like bombs in the water. People are shooting at me, and I'm like, this is not going to end well.
Don't you hate it when that happens?
I had to put the controller down after I died at like the 8th time, and I'm like, methinks I'm going to dial back the difficulty because I'm, thought I'd be smart and we're like, yeah, let's play it on normal. Nah, I think we're gonna have to scale this back to easy mode because it's hard. But I'm enjoying it thus far. And lastly, Sea of Thieves. I have a group that I used to play with. I think one of my friends rage quit because the Kraken took all the treasures out. And he's like, that's it. I'm done with this game. So we stopped playing for a while. Sorry, Brian. I had to share the story. And so I said, let's get back to it. I have a group that likes to play it and a friend that runs a Discord for us to chat. So back to Sea of Thieves. Hopefully the Kraken does not make an appearance and destroy our boat and take our treasures.
Well, I just have one little game. It's been super busy lately for a variety of reasons, but I have been playing Paperback Adventures on Steam.
Lucky.
And I gotta say, really, really enjoying it. I already liked Paperback Adventures.
Yeah.
I played a prototype version of it a while ago. I have the physical version, which is a gorgeous board game production. I've been enjoying that. As usual, a digital edition makes some of the fiddlier parts of a game really smooth out, right? And so that is also true of paperback adventures, even if it's just kind of tracking the hit points
Yeah.
or splaying the cards left or right and looking at your options because that's a critical part of the game.
Mhm.
I have to say, so far, even I think it's only in early access, they've done a really nice job. It's a very polished production. And yeah, hey, if you want to try paperback adventures, that might be an easier way to do it before you kind of dive into the physical copy, or if you that's just not how you play games or things like that. So I've really, really been enjoying paperback adventures, and Mandy, I think we should stream it sometime soon if we can
Yeah.
arrange to do that because I think it's a lot of fun as a game, and I'm really liking the digital implementation on Steam too. So, but that's about all the digital gaming I've been doing lately.
I'm sorry. I think I've done enough for both of us. It's not my fault
Thank you,
that I have
thank you,
all the things. I'm sorry.
thank you. But we also have a couple of crowdfunding projects that we wanted to bring forward. Mandy, would you like to go first, please?
I sure would because it's not really game related, but it's kind of like still in that geek world, I guess you could say.
Fair
But
enough. Hey, this is your segment, baby. You do what you want.
yeah, and it's also a topic that is it's I don't want to say close to my heart, but it's something that I understand well, and definitely understand some of the things behind it. So it's called Hairology, a celebration of hair, a comic anthology all about hair. And what's nice is the foreword is done by Gail Simone. So people who are familiar, yes, I know Suzanne, you know Gail on fairly well, and I've had some conversations with her. Lovely. So if you are familiar with the comic world, or you'd be very familiar with some of her work. So it talks about natural hair, balding, transitioning, body hair, cancer, dye, and more. And the reason why I was like, okay, this might be kind of cool to look at is my hair went back to the natural hair color recently, and I realized it had been like 12 years since I had my natural hair color. Like, that's a long time. And I don't think people understand, like, that sort of thing takes a toll on, your hair. And hair is such a huge thing. We had a discussion, Suzanne and I, a little bit before this about hair, but hair is huge. Like, hair tells a story, hair signals certain things, in history. Like, if you
Yeah,
wear
it has a cultural meaning, right?
yes.
Depending on where you are, for sure.
Absolutely. So, I mean, I'm not going to go too deep in it here, but I just thought that's really cool. And I like the fact that they're showcasing not just one type of hair, all types of hair, from all cultures, different eras, and kind of telling that story. And to me, I'm like, that's cool. So this is, I think, volume 1. I'm hoping that they do more, but I'm really loving the art, really loving the diversity that I'm seeing. Just really excited about it. So I think that one, it's on Kickstarter now, and yeah, y'all know how good I am at getting these dates here. One moment, please. Let's like hold. As of the recording of this, so it'll be a few days out. It says there's 11 days to go. Ah, here it is. March 9th. So it ends on March 9th at 10 p.m. Eastern time. So if you want to check out Hairology, a celebration of hair, you've got some time to do that. There you go.
Very cool. I just have a quick shout out for a project from 25th Century Games. They're doing a project that actually has 3 games, so you can back for 1, 2, or all 3 of them.
Ooh.
Agueda, Colorfield, and Donut Shop. And they're vastly different. These are from different designers and everything. They seem to all be tile laying games from what I can tell, which is a type of game I really enjoy. I love laying out tiles and connecting sides. That's always fun to me. This also ends March 9th, and there's a deal where you can get all 3 games for $95 US plus shipping. But I just think they all look thematically interesting. I've been playing a few 25th Century games lately. I reviewed Gasha recently,
Yep.
and that's been a little filler that I introduced it to my 10-year-old recently, and he's been loving it.
Oh.
And then I've been playing Blazon, which I backed a little while ago, that's all about shield heraldry,
Yeah.
which is I've been enjoying that too. So I saw this campaign and figured I'd give it a shout out. Agueda is apparently an art installation with painted umbrellas that was like a living exhibit that traveled around, and it just sounds like the inspiration is so beautiful as you're trying to pick out umbrellas and trade them in and arrange your display. Colorfield seems very abstract, but very like what is it, A Time for Rain, that
Okay.
game from that, it just seems peaceful, right? Sometimes you
Ooh.
want those really calm, chill games.
Yes.
Colorfield kind of gives that vibe. And of course, Donut Shop is a game about donuts, and the donuts look really, really yummy. You have been warned. So, check that out. That ends March 9th from 25th Century Games. I feel like they've got a great record going on right now in terms of
Mhm.
puzzly games that they've been producing. So maybe
Yeah.
you'll find one or more that you find interesting in that campaign.
No, that's really cool. And actually, I hadn't even seen that. I haven't been on Kickstarter, so that's one I'll definitely have to take a look at. And I forgot to mention the price. There's always something for the Herology comic that I mentioned. I myself pledged at the $10 US digital level, but I think you can get a physical book at around the $20 mark. So sorry about that.
We love you, Mandy, for who you are.
Forgetful.
All right. You want to talk about some of the fabulous or maybe not so fabulous games that we've been playing lately?
Yeah, let's do it. Okay, I'm excited for games played because I had a couple games that were kind of sitting there going, Mandy, hello, come play me. So, thanks to my friend Michael, I was able to get this played because 2-player games are a little tricky for me to get played.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, because my groups are always more than 2. So, the first one I'm going to talk about is Undaunted Stalingrad. And for those who are like, Undaunted, that sounds familiar, there are a couple other versions. There was, I think, Normandy, North Africa, and Reinforcements.
Yep.
So this is, another installment, but this one is a slightly different game. So Undaunted Stalingrad is designed by Trevor Benjamin and David Thompson I. Art is by Roland McDonald, and it's published by Osprey Games. It's for 2 players, plays in about 45 to 60 minutes, and it retails for about $133 Canadian. Okay. So Undaunted Stalingrad, much like the others, is a platoon-like standalone campaign game with branching narratives. That's the difference. This is a campaign game,
Right.
which is different than the others. So the others have like scenarios that you can play through, but this one is specifically set up as a campaign game. So I don't want to give away too much, but I can kind of give you a brief overview. So the objective of the game is much the same as the others, is to gain control of a certain value of tiles in the game, and it lets you know when you go through your book specifically how many that you're trying to control. And I think we're playing Germany and the Soviets. I apologize if it should be Russia, but I'm pretty sure they say Soviets. So if someone correct me if I am wrong
In that
on
era,
that.
it probably is Soviets. Yeah.
So please, I do want to make sure I'm not getting that incorrect. And you have 2 books for each of those players, and in essence, a lot of the information is the same, but some of it's not once you start progressing through the campaign, because it'll say, okay, like if you're this player, these are things that you're going to have to do. If you're this player, these are things that you're going to have to do. Some of it's open information, some of it, no, they're like, no, you need that to keep that to yourself. So the gameplay area will be in from the book. You set up the tiles according to how it tells you to set it up for that particular scenario. And then some of the tiles have values on them, and those are kind of the tiles you're going to want to take over to get those points. You don't have to do all of them, but it might say you need 4 points. So you have to look for the tiles that either have a 2 or a 1. So 2 tiles that have a value of 2 would get you your 4 points to get control of those. It's not that easy. So, and we came across this where I had a setup where all my players were right down on the bottom, versus my friend Michael's players were kind of a bit more spread out. And I think they do that kind of in the first game, and then it changes up when you do the second game. So it's not consistently one person struggling to kind of get out of their area. And there are different actions in the game, such as scouting, which allows you to move forward on some tiles. Moving, so you can push forward to get those tiles, to get them under your control. Inspiring, allowing you to get other cards into your hand because it is a deck builder. And this is where you are going to want to have more cards to give you more options. And the cards you have will have values on them, as well as some of those actions printed. And what you're going to do is you're going to take those cards, choose one when you're starting a game, put it face down, and the value on that is going to determine whose initiative order, so who's going to play their hand first. So this is tricky because maybe you have a really high number card, but it's got some real good actions on there. But if you want to go first, you're going to have to get rid of it because that card is not usable. You're using it just to see who goes first.
Yep.
And then you play your cards. And then there are some kind of fog of war cards, which kind of clog your hand up a bit, so you don't want to get those. But there are actions to remove those. Anyway, so you do that back and forth, You go, the other person goes, you go, the other person goes, unless someone changes the order. And you basically try to get control of those tiles on the board. Whoever wins, then they have like a process that happens. And I don't necessarily know if I want to give away too much
Sure,
about
sure.
that.
That's always a challenge with these kind of progressive
Yeah,
games, right?
because I want you to experience it, but after that happens, there are things that happen differently for the person that loses versus the person that wins, different types of cards, and sometimes cards that were in play kind of change value a little bit. So I don't want to get to details of that, but these are things that can happen in the game, and they set you up for the next story. And not all cards, the tiles that you use on the board, some of those tiles go away and then new ones come in, much like a lot of other campaign games. But this one, the board changes because you do have different tiles versus some games.
Right.
It's a board and you have stickers or something like that.
Right.
So the main way the game plays, it's pretty close to the same as the other ones. That you just have that campaign element, and that's where it varies. So far, we've just started diving into it, but I did want to talk about it because it's been sitting there and we finally got a chance to go through it. And I mean, I like these games. Let's be clear. I am horrendous. Like, really bad. No. Really bad at these games. I think
Cool,
I'm doing
let's
great.
play, and we'll race for the bottom because I'm terrible at it too.
It's rough, but I'm still having fun while playing it. So this is one of those games, if you don't own any of them, do I think you need all of them? No,
Yeah.
I really don't. I really don't think you need all of them because a lot of them do similar things. Like I think as they progress, you got vehicles in one. This one kind of has all the things. So if you were going to do one, I almost wonder if you should just do this one. And then you kind of see all the things that were
Because
kind
then
of
you're
implemented
set,
in
right? You
previous
just got
versions.
a mass of game options.
Right.
Got it, yeah.
Unless you're like, no, I want to have something like I love this type of game. Great, then get all the sets. But for someone who maybe has never played or doesn't feel like they would want to have a ton of these in their collection, I honestly believe you only need one, but they're all excellent games. So Undaunted Stalingrad, overall, I really enjoyed it. And I don't really have a lot of negative things to say. There's some squibbly things I have to say about the rule book, the way some of the examples are laid out, but again, it's minor, like you can still understand it. But overall, I thought the component pieces are really well done. It's not too much. The cards are clear. Not too much I can say bad about it now. I will revisit this once
After you get
we've
a little
gone a
deeper.
few games. Yeah, exactly. And hopefully my streak turns to winning because right now it sucks. I'm losing, but the game itself, real fun. So Undaunted Stalingrad. So keep your ears open for more on that.
That's really this is not an edition I have some of the other Undaunted, and I really do like the system overall. So interesting to hear you say no, you could, like, if you only are gonna, I think that's interesting perspective. All right, it's Roland Right time, folks. Duh. All right, look at the stars. Mandi, look at the stars.
I am.
Look at the Stars is published by Bombix Games. It's designed by Romain Caterdijan, and the illustrations are by Adrian Lacose. And I bought it off of Philibert for €22 plus whatever it cost to ship from France to the US a while ago, because I got a demo of this. One, it's a Roll and Write, so I'm going to buy it. But two, I got a demo of it along with Sea Salt and Paper at Gen Con, and of course was interested in bringing it home. One of the things I like about it is it plays 2 to 8 out of the box. It has 8 boards, and that's a nice player range for a game, just to have that flexibility in player count. Look at the Stars, you get a dry erase board that has a soft grid of different dots for stars, and there's some constellation illustrations that actually block areas of your board off. And then there are cards. So you're going to play through 3 rounds of 6 cards each, and then the game's over. So 18 turns, and then you see who scores the most points. There are 2 different special scoring cards every game as well. When you achieve a certain shape that's on the card, you may get extra points, or you may get like a little bonus turn, a bonus line, something like that on your board. The cards themselves represent different lines that you can draw on your board. So ultimately what you're doing is you're connecting these star points and drawing constellations, or trying to draw different constellations. Constellations being a soft term just for connected groupings of lines on your board. And so a card flips over, everybody can draw that shape on their board, you keep on going. One element of this game is the sun rises, and so twice when you go through the first stack of 6 cards, the bottom of the board is going to be cut off, not physically, but removed from play. You can't draw below a certain line. And then after 6 more cards, it gets even smaller. You remove even more of the board that you cannot draw on for the rest of the game. And then you play the last 6 and you score. The way you score is that when you have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, the number of lines in a constellation. So I have 7 lines in my constellation. I get to mark off my 7 box, and I will score 7 points at the end of the game. The little twist here is each number only scores once. So if I have 2 number 4 constellations, I'm still only going to get 4 points. I don't get 8. So that second 4 is kind of a point waster in a way.
Mm-hmm.
And there are some other rules with shooting stars and things like that. It's very flexible in how you draw. You can cross on lines, you can intersect, things like that. So it's actually fairly flexible in how you draw. So that's the whole game. Very quick, very simple to teach. Roll and write game. So I really like Look at the Stars, and there is an implementation on Board Game Arena that I'm in frequent gameplays on Board Game Arena. I will say I think I prefer it on Board Game Arena than I do in the physical implementation. I think the game itself is very, very solid. One thing that I've realized in playing with real people, with physical, not real people, with the real game. I should say this differently. Not real people, the real game. The spatial element, the spatial planning is very, very challenging for some people and not others. So if you're a person that is challenged by like polyomino games and figuring out the orientation, right? Because you get this card and it's not like one diagonal line, one vertical line. No. It's going to be like one vertical line separated and then another and then a diagonal line. And you can rotate it, but you can't flip it, right? And so you just see people really struggling with that orientation. On BGA, you can just click rotate, and you have on your board a visual representation of where those lines would connect that makes it much easier. Exactly. It makes it much easier for folks who struggle with that spatial positioning. Yeah. Now, if you don't struggle with it, it's a non-issue, but I have to acknowledge that I saw people struggle with that on this game. And then finally, Twilight Inscription did this, and now Look at the Stars, and this is a trend I want to stop. Black dry erase boards in which they ask you to use neon chalk ink pens or white, like in Look at the Stars, it's white. I know if you're doing a space or a night setting, it feels thematic. It is not worth it. There are a number of issues with issuing chalk ink pens. First of all, for folks who don't know, shipping roll and write games or any games with dry erase pens is fraught from a publisher production and cost point of view. These pens are notorious for breaking and drying out and shipping, and then you have a customer service challenge and a customer service cost to replace these dry erase pens, et cetera, et cetera. They're a nightmare to deal with in general. Now you throw in these chalk ink pens that I believe dry out faster than regular dry erase pens, and they are a type of pen. Like, I have a ton of dry erase pens just around, regular ones. Yeah. I'll live. I don't have a spare chalk ink pen anywhere. They're not pens that people have spares of if they open their box and 3 of them are dry and you're trying to play a game. And they're just more inconvenient to buy replacements, all this other stuff. So and they are finickier to write and erase with. So with Twilight Inscription, if you make a mark, you're like, oh, I didn't want to do that. Normally, you could just erase it right away, right? With those pens, you gotta blow on the ink, make sure it's totally dry, and then you can erase it. If you try to erase it while it's still wet, it just smears all over the place.
Yeah, and don't use your fingers, otherwise it looks like you just had Cheetos. So
yeah, and absolutely. And there's also, there's absolutely the issue of if you get on your table surface or whatnot. Yeah. Then with Look at the Stars, I don't know what happened, but it was persistent. They are very challenging to erase. They give you little cloth microfiber sheets for every player to erase it with. It was comical how difficult it was to erase those lines. Literally pressure, rubbing as hard as I could. I know that sounds bad, but like rubbing as hard as you can, and the marks aren't moving. And that is just annoying and frustrating. And a friend pointed out, oh, hey, just draw over the line again with the pen and it'll pick it up. I don't want to have to retrace my entire board to erase it. That's ridiculous. And it's not a function of just one pen. It was, this is a repetitive experience. So Look at the Stars, a very enjoyable, puzzly, spatial challenge game that in many ways feels thematic.
Right.
The physical version of it, real rough for me. Real rough. I just got to say that. Maybe your mileage will vary, but that was my experience with it. I love the game. Super fun game. Challenge me on BGA and I'm there. Look at the Stars.
I gotta tell you, but I'm one of those people that'll be like, ooh, silver or white on black. That sounds great.
It
And
looks
then
very
be
pretty.
and that's the problem, right? Like it looks nice, but then longevity wise or just overall use of it is frustrating and nobody wants that. So I totally get that. Well, I talked about this next game last podcast on my crowdfunding, what's coming up on crowdfunding, but I actually had a chance to play it and insert link here. I did a video on said game, but it was just going through a preview of the game. So the game is Couture, and this is currently on Kickstarter, and it's designed by Yusuke Sato, and it's published by Allplay. And, well, as the name suggests, in Couture, players seek to win cards through auctions in New York, Paris, and Tokyo. New cards are available to draft in each city, and we're going to talk quickly about how that happens. And you're going to get to look at different cards, which look at your iconic poses, your signature walks. You have a personal glam squad, and more. So once the 7th round has ended, players determine their total score with your magazine cover awards, which are going to give you some bonus points, and there are other cards that actually have points on them. The model with the highest score wins the game. So quickly, this game, you'll have your cards set out. So remember how we mentioned New York, Paris, and Tokyo? Those have them labeled, and you're going to put those across the center of the table. And then what's going to happen is you're going to have cards laid out in columns. So I think it depends on player count, but I think it's a few cards, 1, 2, 3 cards per place. So New York will have 3, and then you'll have Tokyo have 3, and then, Paris and then Tokyo. So there'll be a total of 9 cards. So 3 in each column in each place. And what's going to happen is you have a set of cards. Each player has like starter cards, and they have values on them that you're going to use for bidding. So you're going to do this in your hand. So you have your cards, and then you'll have those city cards as well in your hand. So if you want to have a certain value of cards in New York, you need to make sure in your hand you have those cards, and then the New York card is beside it. And then if you want to have a certain value in Tokyo, you want to make sure that Tokyo card is there, and these cards you want to assign to Tokyo are there. And you could have no cards as well. So it's just a matter of how much you want to bid, depending on how badly you want the cards. And there are different types of cards that you might want to acquire. Some are based on different types of symbols. Having the most symbols will get you extra bonus points in the form of a magazine cover. Some cards require you to have pairs of certain types of cards. Whoever has the most pairs gets the magazine cover right away, the first one which has the most points, and then the next one, so forth. There are other ones that have like designer labels, so you want to have a variety of labels to give you points. So these magazine covers will give you those extra points for having the largest variety, and so forth. So this is what you're going to do over those 7th round, trying to get these cards, and also trying to acquire better cards for bidding in order to get those other cards. So, and like I said, that's going to happen for 7 rounds, and then once that's over, then you just count your scores of all your cards and magazine covers that you've acquired. That was very fast. So if you wanted a more detailed look at it, like I said, there's a video that I've done on the channel that you can take a look at. I liked this game. I think I was expecting something a little different, because I do have other fashion type games, not a ton of them, but I have Pret-a-Porter, which is, I wouldn't say
Well,
heavy,
there's not
but
a
it is
lot
a
of
heavier
games
game.
with the fashion theme in general, so.
That's true. I mean, I seem to have a lot for some reason.
Well, sure, because it appeals to you, yeah.
Sure, exactly. But you're right. On a whole, there isn't. But it's definitely on the lighter side. And I wish I remembered. Someone made a comparison of a game online that they thought it was similar to, and it's not coming to me right now. But it's another kind of card-based game, and it plays in like 20-ish minutes or so. Like it's not a long, maybe 30 minutes. So it's not a long game. But I just really liked the way that it played, like that whole hand management with like having them in your hand, acquiring a specific set of cards. And I like the fact that everybody took like a different way of playing and still managed to get points. So I was all about those symbols. I'm like, yeah, give me those symbols so I can get that magazine right away. One of those points where someone else was focusing on getting those pairs and then maybe touching on something else. So I like games that it's not just one way that you have to win it. The art so far, I didn't have a final copy, so I should be clear about that. I had a prototype, but the art, the direction it's going is fantastic. And as someone who was in the fashion world, very clear what was ready to wear, very clear what was high fashion. I thought that was great. So I really appreciated the thought and sentiment that went into that, so I'm very much looking forward to the final art when that comes through. Some things in the rules I feel, and like I said, I had a prototype version, weren't 100% clear, and I feel like this is something that'll probably or hopefully get remedied going forward. Like some of the points were confusing, like it had points on the card, but then in the rules it didn't say that these cards were counted as points separately, just as a pair. So little things like that were not super clear, but again, it could be because I had a prototype version. Going forward, we'll hopefully those types of things are clear. You also had cards that had a symbol that gave you extra bidding power, but the way that it was on the card wasn't super clear. So if you had a card that had 2 bidding power, it would have like an extra 2, but with the symbol that was on it, it was a bit confusing. So little things like that I hope get a bit clearer. But other than that, Couture for me was real snappy game. I enjoyed it. I mean, the theme are right up my alley, so I'm about it. So Couture, it's I think it's probably going to be off of Kickstarter by the time we air this
By the time this
podcast.
airs, yeah, it might be.
Yeah, but
There's always
anyway,
late
you have-
pledges.
exactly. But anyway, but at least now you exactly late pledges, and you know a little bit more about it now that I've talked about it. So there you go.
Cool. All right, next up for me, Dogfight. Rule the skies in 20 minutes. 20 minutes or less, folks. Close enough.
Ish.
Dogfight is a game designed by Carlo A. Rossi. The art is by Paul Sizer, and this is published by PSC Games. That is Plastic Soldier Company Games.
Right.
I saw this game at PAX Unplugged, and I was at PAX Unplugged, and the PSC booth was a little bit near the restoration booth, and I walked by and I saw the stack of games, and it had a vibe to it because it is the third game in this 20-minute game series that PSC is apparently leaning into that includes Blitzkrieg and Caesar.
Right. Okay.
Blitzkrieg, if I had to do a top 100, Blitzkrieg might creep into it. I love Blitzkrieg. I think it's a phenomenal 2-player only game.
Yeah,
I really do like Caesar as well. It doesn't, not quite as much as Blitzkrieg, but it's still also a very solid 2-player game. And now Dogfight. Yeah. And so I go up and I'm like, oh, they have a stack of Dogfight. I'm like, how much Dogfight do you have? And, just kind of worried about budget and luggage space. And they basically said, this is all we have. And this is all we're going to have until summer of 2023. This is back in December when I was at PAX Unplugged. I'm like, well, I guess I'm buying it then. Because I really do like the previous 2 games. And heck if I'm going to wait, right?
Exactly.
So Dogfight, Rule the Sky in 20 minutes is not a bag building game in the same way. But basically you have a board and it has a track on it. And you each get just one plain meeple in your color, and then you get some tokens that you are going to be playing that drive your movement. And you are basically going to be on this board chasing each other around, trying to shoot at each other and knock each other out of the skies. And whoever does that first wins the game. Similar to Blitzkrieg, in which you're doing, chip management, right? Dogfight has that as well. Where different chips have different movement values on it. You know what your opponent has, so there's a little bit of that really playing the player. In fact, I would say that more than any of the other games in this series, Dogfight is the one where you are really staring down your opponent at that table going, okay, you know that I know that you know that I have the 2 with the double star for the double hit. But I also know that you could move 4 and get out of range, but like all this other stuff. That really is what it is. It is a dead simple mechanically game. I was surprised at how engaging. When I read the rules to it, I got it home and I read the rules. I was a little surprised at how simple it was. I also was a little surprised because when you open the box, you have like a handful of different colored plain meeples, and they're like,
Okay.
take the red meeple and take the blue meeple and put them on the board, and you're done. I'm like, wait a minute, what about the yellow and the green and the black and the gray and the brown I have over here? We'll get to that in a second.
Yeah.
Really, rules wise, the simplest of the games. There are some advanced rules. There are some extra tile spaces, and there's a reverse side board that has a more advanced track as well.
Mm.
Cool. I like the base game. I think it's fun. I would actually say because it's light, it's very snappy, it's very quick.
Right.
I would actually, it doesn't exceed Blitzkrieg in the series for me, but I would say it's
Okay.
going to get to the table more than Caesar does. Now, the thing is, you open this box and you got all these other meeples. You're like, well, what the heck? They're different planes. You only play with one plane each. It's variety. Each plane is a little different. So they have different amounts of power, strength, speed, life points, that kind of thing. So as you play, you just mix up the planes and you've got a different feeling game, whether you
Mm.
play the green plane versus the yellow plane or the blue plane versus the brown plane, that kind of thing. Very, very cool. And exploring those is a lot of fun. It's like, oh, I have more small movement tokens, but they hit harder. Or I have more, you move fast and you hit like all this. There's a lot of variety in that you can explore different play
Right.
styles, which is cool. The other thing is, and then you have the advanced track. The other element is there are 4 other ways to play the game, like mini expansions that are included in the box. So, for example, there is my favorite one is the escort mission, where you get a gray plane that you have to escort and accomplish and reach certain points before the end of the game, or otherwise you
Right.
lose. That's how you can play it solo as well, which works really, really well.
Oh,
And there's
okay.
like an espionage one, and there's all these different tokens that come with the different mini expansions that are included in the box. So I will say, not only is it rules light for the base game, very quick, very snappy, um, not the most strategic game maybe at the base form, but once you start mixing up those planes or trying the special missions or the variants that are included in the box, it really picks up. And I feel like so many players talk about replayability or variability and things like that. And I'm a little softer on that. I kind of side eye some folks in the way that they view that in games, but I will say if that is your thing, I feel like Dogfight Rule the Skies in 20 Minutes has a ton of value in the box, a ton of replayability and
Yeah.
variability for a 2-player only game. It also plays solo, and definitely worth a look when it becomes more available. My understanding from Plastic Soldier Company, when I talked to them at PAX Unplugged, they were hoping for summer of this year. So hopefully in a
Oh,
few months it'll be available. I definitely recommend it. I really enjoyed it.
yeah. I know you had mentioned this one before, and it's one I looked at, but it's just 2-player games are so tricky for
I
me to
know.
get
This
played.
is yeah.
Yeah. And I like the title. Dogfight, Rule the Sky in 20 minutes. Sorry. I
It
just
really,
had
yeah,
to
I
do it.
think the base game is 20 minutes. Yeah.
Love it. All right. Well, the last game I'm going to talk about is one that I actually backed on Kickstarter. And I don't know if this makes me a nerd, but I just love games that are around that talk about language or I don't know, any type of game that has to do with like the English language or just language in general. I think it's really great. I don't know, that's a teacher or nerd or both, whatever. So it's called League of the Lexicon. And art is by Stavros Demos and Stephen Noble. And it's published by Two Brothers Games. It's for 2 to 6 players, plays in about 30 to 90 minutes. And currently it is on pre-order. So it's about $42 Canadian. And I think that's just for the base game. So I ended up getting the base game, but then I also got another pack that hasn't delivered yet, and it's on slang. So I'm very excited for that one. And apparently they're making a Canadian slang in the works.
Oh, okay, cool.
It's very exciting because people don't realize that across Canada, slang's different. Like, anyway, we won't get into it, but there was something I heard the other day, and I was born in Canada, and I'm like, I have never heard that in my life, but that's something that they say on, further East Coast. Learning the things. Uh, League of the Lexicon is a word game, and it is specifically aimed at people like me, language lovers. So this is something that I just had to have. In the game, there are a bunch of questions. So you have these really large cards with questions on them, and they have 5 categories, and they go from etymology to word usage to archaic meanings, which is real fun. And you get to roll a die, which determines the category from which players answer questions from. So, for roll a 1, then you'd pick category 1, whatever it may be, and then read the question from there. You also have these artifact cards. You're trying to earn artifacts and get the correct artifacts based on your character card. So on your character card, you'll have these little symbols on them, and you're trying to get artifact cards to match those symbols. And in the game, there are ways to kind of, if you're not getting those cards, to kind of toss those cards out or use 2 of the same type to make one type of artifact that's shown on your player card. And now you're supposed to play until you get all of the artifacts. Sometimes we play a little bit longer, but the game also has 2 levels of difficulty, so 2 stacks of cards that you can choose from. So if you want something with, a little more tricksy, I know that's not a word, but I like to say it. So if you want something a little more tricksy, you can use that deck, or you just want something a little more simple, then you can just stick to the this more simple deck. And that's it. So you play until you get those artifacts, or a player gets those artifacts pictured on their card. But like I said, we like to push it a little bit more. So this is a game I actually play a lot with my mom, because we play a lot of word games. Like Scrabble is our go-to. Like, she loves Scrabble, and she is kicking my butt. Okay, like, you should hear her too. She's like,
Good job, Mumsy.
She's like, my score, it's only 400. It needs to be higher. I'm like, seriously? Okay. And this girl right here is barely cracking 300. And I'm like, this is sad. I'm the teacher in the group here, and I stink. So she's pretty good. So when I brought this one to her, she's like, I don't know, I like our Scrabble. She loves it. And now she's learned a word, or I guess is using a word. I don't know how she's using it. Corpulent. It's her
Ooh.
new word, because that's one we learned in the game. She's like, I like the way it sounds, corpulent. I'm going to use it in my regular language. But like, they'll have questions like, name 10 words that describe pain or feeling pain. And it's funny because you think it's easy, but when you just sit there and think about it, you're like, the struggle is real. So but I like that challenge, and I like that it's not just like one type of question. You can excel at different types. And I think one of the die values is like a dealer's choice, like you can pick. So if you know you're good at something, you can kind of pick that category. Anyway, League of the Lexicon, it definitely falls into that, like, would you say, like, intelligent party game? Not that party games are not intelligent, but it's like a different type of party game, I guess. This is not a game that everybody's going to enjoy. Like, I know so many people who are just not into word games, so it's not going to be for you. But I feel it still falls into that party-esque type game, or at least large group type game. So, League of the Lexicon, I'm really liking it. If you like word games, I definitely think you should check it out. And like I said, the base game is available, hoping that they'll have the slang version and the other kind of add-ons available as well.
I'm so glad. I like word games, and I know that they're very divisive amongst gamers in general, but I really enjoy word games. And Mandi, thank you for bringing this up. I never heard of this game, and I'm going to go check it out. Yeah,
Oh my
this is new to me,
We,
so I'm
we,
excited
we might
to
have
check it out.
to pull a card up on one of the podcasts and just,
Oh
just
boy.
do one
All right.
question. Oh no, I'll be real bad, but it's fun.
All right. The last game of the show for me here is it's got such a punny name, but I still got to talk about it. So, vegetable stock. Vegetable stock is a stock market game with vegetables, and they called it vegetable stock.
I can't. I love it.
Oh, people.
I said
Anyway, this is designed by Zhanghua Yang, and we have art and illustrations by Poki Chen and Zhanghua Yang, who is also going by Bob, apparently. This is published by Good Games Studio, and I believe they're out of Taiwan, and linked to Taiwan Board Game Designs as well. So in this game, you've got a deck of cards that have 3 vegetables on it. It can be any mix of broccoli, carrots, tomatoes, and 2 others. I can't remember off the top of my head. Eggplant is one, right? So maybe you have a card that has 2 broccoli and 1 carrot, or maybe you have a card that has 3 carrots, or you could have a card that has 1 eggplant, 2 carrots, that kind of thing, right? You just have a whole deck of these cards. Cool. And then you have the stock market cards. So there's just a little ladder, 1 through 5, and there's 1 for every vegetable. And then you have the vegetable cards, and you just slide them up the track to mark their value. So if the tomato card is at the number 4 line, tomatoes are worth $4. And on this game, all you're going to do is you deal out cards, 1 card per player plus, and everybody just drafts a card You just take a card into your possession, into your own personal stock, and the card that is remaining is the one that will move the stock market. So if
Okay.
the card that is not taken has 2 tomatoes and an eggplant, then tomato will move up twice and eggplant will move up once. The twist is that when you hit the top, if you're at $5 and the value increases, it actually tanks and goes all the way back down to 0. Now you can move it up again, but that's something you're like, "Oh yeah, I got a ton of eggplant and they're worth $5. I'm rich." And then somebody leaves that triple eggplant card or whatever and they hose you and then you
That's
yell at
so
them and
funny.
kick them out of your house because you don't like them anymore.
Rich and eggplant.
Um
I like it.
Yes, exactly. See, eggplants destroy lives, and that's the game. You play, I think, in just 6 rounds. It's very like this game is very very quick. If you were to teach it to a gamer, in fact, we did this the other night. We taught it to a player who hadn't played it, but is one of our game group and plays all the time. Taught it to them in like literally a minute, and
Oh
we're
wow.
sitting down and playing. It's that quick and easy, and it plays super duper 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 fast.
Mhm.
There are some expansion cards, I believe, were from like a crowdfunding campaign or something, like a tornado that mixes things up and whatnot. I don't find they have a huge impact to the game. They're fine. Live with them, live without them, whatever you have
Right.
there. Vegetable stock plays 2 to 6 out of the box. And I gotta say, this is gonna be one of my go-to fillers. I flippin' love it. It is such a simple game.
Yeah.
Absolutely simple, especially if you're familiar with hobby board games at all.
Right.
So quick, but super engaging. And the way that you just have that open draft and you see the cards when they come out, and you're like plotting what you want to take, but somebody else is going to take it. So then you plan your backup card, and then the card you absolutely cannot leave out there. And then at the end of the game, you're looking at your board and you realize that you went heavy tomatoes, but somebody tanked tomatoes in the last round. It is very clever for what
Yeah.
it is. This is not it is a light game, but it is you think about it. You can plan. You can be strategic even with the randomness of the cards. And yeah, you can be thwarted at the last minute, but the game plays in 12 minutes, so who cares? You just shuffle up and do
Yeah.
it again. I
Exactly.
love vegetable stock. I'm so glad my friends Josh and Melissa helped me get a copy and introduced me to it because it is a absolute new favorite of mine for a quick filler game. So if you can get a copy, check that out. Vegetable stock. I love it even though it has a punny name. That's how good it is.
That sounds so cute. Yeah, you're definitely gonna have to show me that one. It sounds adorable. And I meant to tell you, I tried Marvel Remix the other night.
Oh, hey, nice.
I liked it, and I'm obviously really good at it. And for some reason, the villains were just calling to me. I had so
Yeah.
many villains, but they scored so well for me. So I gotta tell you, I really enjoyed it. So just thought I'd share.
Yeah. Cool. All right, Mandi, I think we're going to roll over. And I know we've got a quick question from a listener we can drop in here and then serve up some game pie.
Sounds like a plan.
All right, folks, if you remember us from our older podcast, every once in a while we'll do Q&A. You're welcome to send in questions. We got a really great question from Michael here, and we figured we better drop it in because, sorry, Michael, we know it's been a while. Hopefully we can get some good answers for you because I'm really looking forward, folks. We'll post this when this posts in BGG. Please reply back with your input on this one, too. I think it's a really interesting question. So Michael writes in and says, a couple years ago, they conducted a team building activity over the course of several months using hues and cues with faculty and staff and students, it sounds like, to just kind of bring people together. And they did it asynchronously. So on Monday, they would select a color and post a clue, and then people would write down their coordinates, and then they would kind of roll through that and add more clues and then reveal at the end of the week. And it was just a really good way to engage people and connect. But of course, eventually it kind of eased off. And so Michael is looking for other games like Hues and Cues that they could use for in a similar fashion. Something large scale asynchronous is the way Michael phrases it. I think that's a great way to phrase it. So thank you so much for sending in that question, Michael. I think it's a great question in a really wonderful way. Mandi, you use games in kind of classroom, adult, or otherwise environments a lot. You have a lot of experience with that. Did you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, sure. And it's hard. This makes it tricky because it's asynchronous. So in
And
class,
such a large group. Yeah, absolutely. Right.
Right. So, but I used to be when I was working in the office because I do currently work from home. But when I was working in the office, I actually had Jenga was, believe it or not, one that I would just keep on my desk that people could play, and then so you could take a piece, take it out. But I'd actually even put like labels and stuff on them to kind of jazz it up a little bit. So that was one that went over really well at my office. It was really hilarious when it dropped because you could hear ah, but you just start all over. So Jenga was popular. Sorry, I know you wanted to say something just before I continue. You looked like you had
No, go
something
for
to
it.
say.
No, I was just thinking about how, like, then you have to pick it all up and set it up again. That's all I was thinking about.
No, actually, I had very kind cubicle mates, and be like, "Oh, it's okay. I'll put it together." I mean, we took turns, so it wasn't too bad. And we'd have a little chat. But even the game that I just talked about, League of the Lexicon, I actually think that would be one that could work because you have a card. And now you'd have to alter the rules slightly. I don't think I would play with the artifacts portion of it. I mean, you could if you wanted to, but even just the types of questions they have, you could have the card out. This is the question that you have, and then have people writing the different answers to it, and then making sure they're writing their name beside their answer, and then awarding points or prizes at the end of it. I think that would be one that could work.
That's awesome. Cool. I'll have to think on this one a little bit more.
Sure.
I just kind of wasn't
Me
in the
too.
mindset earlier. But a few games that popped to mind were Concept.
Mhm.
So Concept is this game where you have a big board of different icons and symbols and things like that, and you're marking them and trying to get other players to guess what word or thought that you're trying to convey by the things you're marking with cubes on this
Right.
this huge board of icons. Now, this is a game that we have run virtually across social media for
Yes.
Gen Can't, where we would just post a photo of the board with the different cubes next to it and let people guess at what they were. And that worked really, really well.
Mhm.
Another idea could be maybe Dixit if you laid out here are the cards it could be, and here are my clue cards, or adding one clue card every day, so to speak,
Right.
to kind of enhance so people could guess if it's card, A, B, C, D, or E, but then every day you add an additional card to
Yeah.
kind of let people zone in a little bit more. And then, of course, it's me. So I'm going to say a ton of roll and write
Oh.
games play really
Yeah.
well
Super good.
with massive numbers of people where, if everybody has a sheet, and that's probably maybe the hitch here, but you can put up the card or the die number of the day and somebody can mark it into their sheet and see where you go at the end of the week kind of situation. But we'll think on that a little bit. I
Yeah.
love this idea just in general. And certainly, folks, if you're out there listening and you're like, Mandi, Suze, you forgot this game, drop it in the comments of the BGG post so that we can get an idea of some other great games for kind of this large scale asynchronous play. Thanks,
Yeah.
Michael.
That's a great question.
All right, Mandi, it's pie time. Let's serve it up.
Yeah, I think we're gonna do something normal this time.
Well, cruising around, and for some reason we're like, well, hey, nautical games. Let's go nautical. And then we realized that there's a lot of nautical games, and there's kind of like the pirate sub niche and the exploration sub niche and whatever. We're just going to call this a nautical game pie. Mandi, would you like to do the honors?
Yes, absolutely. So I'm actually going to start with a favorite of mine and a favorite of a lot of my friends, and that is Deep Sea Adventure. And I don't know, every time I think of Deep Sea Adventure, I have images of my friend going bloop, 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 with their little poking their nose and, oh, let me in, because they, just make it to that submarine. Get too greedy, grab all the treasures, and well, then you don't have enough oxygen to make it back. So thank goodness you got 3 rounds to do it. So Deep Sea Adventure. So much fun, and in such a small package. I'm about that game. Love it, love it. Well worth the money.
A very, very fun game indeed. First up for me, Forgotten Waters. I debated. It's a pirate game, but, pirates, water, all this other stuff. Forgotten Waters is such a phenomenal game, and you do get a
Mhm.
board with hexagons and a ship that you're moving around as you explore the board and hit different encounters. It's a phenomenal game. It plays great. They set it up so you can play it remotely with each other over Zoom calls really well, or at the table you get all these different characters and you get some character progression throughout the game. And there's a really wonderful web app that you can interact with that has full voice acting. So as you're doing different encounters, sometimes you'll run into different characters, and the way that they read the moment is really entertaining. It's just a great immersive game in which you really do have some interesting choices about building up your ship and entering combat and things like that as well, and how you explore it. And I just love it. It's just a phenomenal game from Plaid Hat Games. So that's Forgotten Waters.
Very, very good choice. I actually really, really enjoyed that one. Next one on my list is Ahoy! And I talked about this one potentially in the last
Hey,
podcast.
yeah.
Yeah, I've been actually and the BGG podcast that I did with Candace recently. So this one is, I mean, I loved the theme of it was really cute, and I mean, I loved all these types of games, but I liked the kind of whole asymmetrical. Everyone had a different ability, different kind of crew that they were working with, and whether it was trying to gain cargo or if it was just trying to have take out your enemies and have control of the board. I mean, I'm here for it. So Ahoy for me is one of those games that I just really, really enjoyed from Leader Games, and if you haven't tried it, it's a newer one. You should give it a go.
Next up for me, I don't think this is a cheat. We'll see what people say. The Crew Mission Deep Sea. I mean, Deep Sea is in the name of the game, folks, but it is essentially just a cooperative trick-taking game. This is the evolution of the original Crew game that was set in space. Now we go into the waters, into the depths, instead of up into the skies. And really, the biggest change here is that instead of these specific mission cards, you kind of get mission cards that are a formula that gives you some flexibility in how you build out those missions. And I gotta say, for an experienced, Deep Sea is just, to me, an evolution and an improvement.
Yeah.
And I prefer it over the Crew. Nothing wrong with the Crew. Love the Crew still. I just think Mission Deep Sea took it to a level that I appreciate even more. It's a phenomenal trick-taking game, a cooperative trick-taking game that they just made work so well. Yeah, if you haven't played the Crew, Mission Deep Sea, you should.
I have it. I need to play it, so that's on the list. I have the original. Played the original. So I haven't played the new one. Yeah. Next up on my list, nice slice of pie, is a Cold Water Crown. And I remember playing this when it was a prototype, came out a long time ago. And I mean,
I love this game, yeah.
Yeah, so technically, I guess, I don't know if nautical, but yeah, we're going to say it is. It's mostly about fishing, okay? You're trying to collect certain types of fish in different areas of the board to get these points. And I love the way that the action tokens work on the board. It's just one of those games that just instantly was like, oh my gosh, I really enjoyed this. And I think it's it has to be at least 5 years old, 6 years old by now. And I know there's an expansion that comes out with it as well, which I have. I have the second one, Freshwater. Sorry, title escaped me.
Freshwater Fly.
Thank you.
Is that an expansion? Or is that a separate game?
No, it's a separate game.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's a separate game. So I have both, but I think Cold Water Crown is still the top tier for me. So yeah, really good one.
I love Cold Water Crown. Yeah. Next up, my next slice of nautical pie, and again, I guess this counts as nautical. Captain Sonar. Mandi, I know you must love Captain Sonar, right?
Unless I'm manning, the only thing I like to do in that game is, okay, torpedoes ready on this section. That's the only thing I like to do in that game.
Captain Sonar is absolutely a stress-inducing real-time game in which players split off into teams, and they've got all sorts of different boards, and you take on different roles staffing a submarine, and each team is staffing a submarine, and you are hunting each other down, trying to blow each other up. You've got, engineers and captains giving orders, and somebody's tracking the hidden movement, and somebody's got to load the torpedoes and fire oh my gosh. But it's super duper fun. Now, it's not for everybody, but I totally dig it. I love Captain Sonar, real-time team-based game with hidden movement and things like that, different roles. That's why it is one of my nautical pieces of pie.
Yeah, we'll just leave that one on your list.
It's not for everyone, Mandi.
Well, my final slice of pie is, and I always say it wrong now that I think about it. I always say Port Royale, but it's not. It's actually spelled Port Royal. I think I just pronounce it wrong because there's no E on the end. Sorry, everyone. So Port Royal is one that I actually have the big box, and I played it on a stream solo not too long ago, and I really enjoyed it. It's a card game, right? And it's one of those ones where you're trying to, acquire a crew to help you get some abilities in order to meet some objectives potentially that you have in a game. And, well, the name of the game is getting points. So Port Royal, if you haven't played it, it's one that's been around for a long time. And now that they have the big box, they've added some other elements to make it a little more challenging and, well, just adding more fun. So good. Port Royal, love.
Excellent. And for my last slice of nautical pie, Nautilian. Nautilian is one of the solo or two-player cooperative, but I've only ever played them solo, games in the Oniverse series of games. And this one is dice-based. You're going to lay out this whole big system of tiles that you're going to be using and trying to move around with your ship, and it uses dice for all of your interactions with the enemies on the path and to move your submarine as well. I guess I don't know if that's what the ship is actually called. I have to say Nautilian is probably I mean, it's top 3 in that series for me. I really love Natillion. I really love how the dice work. I really love the system of the bad guy that is under the water and the pressure as you're moving towards each other. I just think the system works really, really well. And because I love solo gaming, I think it fits in my life. It's just the nice weight in terms of how that plays out. So Natillion,
Yeah.
excellent solo game, excellent Universe game. If you play solo, you should check it out.
I haven't played it, but you might entice me to that side. We shall see.
I mean, Mandy, come down visit. I'll play 2-player co-op. I've
Exactly.
never
Let's do
played a
another
2-player
visit.
co-op together. Let's do it.
There you
Come
go. We
on.
got to do it.
Bring me more candy bars.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, my priorities, right, folks? All right, folks. We will call that a podcast. Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of the Salt and Sass show. We're really glad that you are here with us. As
Yeah.
always, it is a pleasure and privilege to be part of your extended gaming family and podcasting with you. Just like you saw with Michael emailing us, we do love to get questions, and we love
Yeah.
it when questions really can get more input from listeners as well. I'm really looking forward to seeing
Yeah.
what people say about that large group asynchronous stuff. You can always email us at saltandsassgames@gmail.com, or that BGG Guild 4131. Come on in, join us, and you can tell me that Mission Deep Sea doesn't count as a nautical game, or you can chime in with a
Wah,
great
wah.
game idea for Michael's large group asynchronous seeking there. And Mandy, where else
Yeah.
can folks find us?
Yeah, you can find us on the social. So for Salt and Sass, you can find us on YouTube. So right here, if you're watching on YouTube, also on Twitch, Salt and Sass Games. You can also find us on the Twitter under Salt N Sass Games. So not Salt and Sass, Salt N Sass Games. You can find me on Instagram and Twitter under 613 Mandy, and that's Mandy with an I. And what about you, Suzanne?
And you can find me on every social media platform, including Spoutable now, because I snuck in at 425 Suzanne. I don't use it, but I'm there. I got it.
Oh my gosh, so many things.
Thanks again, folks, for being here with us. We really, really appreciate you all. Looking forward to next episode 14. In the
Mhm.
meantime, stay healthy, stay happy, stay hydrated, and play some games out there. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Promotional consideration has been provided by game publishers in the form of review copies of games. This episode was sponsored by Druid City Games, where player experience comes first. Check out all of their great games at druidcitygames.com. If you'd like to support the podcast, please check us out on coffee.com/Salt and Sass Games. Thank you for your support. Salt and Sass is produced with love by Suzanne and Mandy, and we'll be back next episode with more salt, more sass, and more games.